second reason that I provided at the time was that there was a spike in the demand, sudden 1,500 megawatts. What that meant is that we had to do one of two things: either continue to deploy the emergency reserves, and I just explained that we're depleting them faster than anticipated, so that was not an option. And the second option was to intensify the load shedding levels, which is an option that we followed because it's the most judicious option in the context of the challenges that were confronting us. And I did say that part of the work that we'll be doing was to ensure that we accelerate the return of those units, or we keep to the return to service schedules of the units that have gone out, so that they give us some degree of relief. So I want to share with you where we are in that exercise. So the major problem really started the week preceding the last one, where we had a significant amount of losses, and these losses meant that we had to engage our emergency reserves. So we took the decision to engage emergency reserves because we are anticipating units to come back on time to provide relief on those emergency reserves. And indeed, those units that were predicted and were scheduled to come back, like Medupi, were able to come back on time, but then we had a significant amount of units that were failing. So essentially, the return of these megawatts were taken out by those units that were failing, which meant that we had to continue to run your emergency reserves. So I'm trying to just as a way of illustration there, that when we opened the week of the 13th, the emergency reserves were really at levels below 70%. So here I'm talking about our pump storage, and I'm talking about our open cycle gas turbines. And as we continue to deploy them, there was a significant reduction in those reserves. I'm talking the dam levels, and I'm also talking the open cycle gas turbine. Of course, for Horikwa, which is one of our open cycle gas turbine, that has to be fed through a pipeline. There's no issue there with regards to the availability of the fuel source, which is diesel. The major issue was at Ankerlech, where we had to transport this by road. And the rate at which we were burning the diesel far exceeded the pace at which we could reasonably replenish the storage. And as a result, we have seen a major dip in relation to the levels of the emergency reserves. And then there was a significant dip again on the 21st of November, and that significant dip in relation to the emergency reserves coincided with us losing the units, because we must compensate the megawatts that are lost as a result of that dip with something. And what we do as that something in this instance is to deploy more of the emergency reserve, or we intensify the levels of load shedding. But what we then did was to say we'll run the emergency reserves, because there was an expectation that the megawatts will come on low. But we saw that it reached critical levels. And once we reach critical levels, our primary preoccupation now is to ensure that we protect the grid, and then we took them out. So essentially, we're not engaging the emergency reserves at the rate at which we've been engaging them. So we pull them back, and as we pull them back, it means that there's less megawatts available. As there's less megawatts available, then it means we needed to intensify load shedding. So I'm happy to say the following, that we have seen a significant improvement from the Friday when we implemented stage 6 load shedding, and then also the Saturday when we implemented stage 6 load shedding. So Ankerlech, the volumes, the diesel volumes are sitting at about 55%, Horikwa 99%. I said the Horikwa really is a pipe, so there should not be major issues. Acacia 50%, and also Port Rex at about 55%. Once they are above these levels, we should be able to manage them. And then also in relation to our pump storage now, we have for Drakensberg, we have additional generating hours now. It's about 90 hours in Gula. We'll have 58 hours of generation hours, and then at Palmit, 33 hours of generation. So essentially, we have made progress as a result of the intensification of those